I will apologize in advance. Sickness has descended upon our household. And so Andy Grace is at home with our kids today, and I am struggling to breathe. So, we appreciate your prayers. I'm preaching with a cough drop in my mouth, which I do when I feel like this. And I always throw out there, if you see me keel over, it may be lodged, and so just come help me, someone. One of the things we try to do in a couple of different times each year when our groups are about to start up, so that's in August and then again in January, is we like to just kind of take a step back and focus a little bit on who we are as a church, how we want to operate, what we value, the things we want to be about. And so we're going to do that starting today for the next few weeks. One of the tools that we have used for many years to help us do that is this picture right here. If you've been around Grace for a long time, you recognize this. I think we still reference this even in Grace 101 if you've taken the Grace 101 class. This is lovingly referred to as the stick figure diagram, based on the wonderful artistic expression of our former pastor Fred, who I saw somewhere. There he is over there. I love this picture because it's simple. And it communicates to us the simplicity of what it is we were created for and designed for as human beings, which is that we are connecting with God. So that triangle up there represents God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. We're connecting with God, and then we're connecting with others. Or as Jesus put it, that the whole law and prophets are summed up in love the Lord your God and love others as yourself. And so this picture does that for us, and so I really like it. So what we're going to do, starting today, for the next few weeks, we want to revisit this picture, and so we're going to do so in a sermon series entitled Pieces of the Picture. Pieces of the Picture. Back in May and in June, we had an elder retreat and a staff retreat. And we, using some resources that we found, we kind of revisited this and said, what are the things that go into making this happen? What are the practical things that we need to be aware of that fill in this picture? We're all about this picture. Like, this is what we want to do. Like, we have a vision, it's this, right? This picture gets it. And so this is what we want to be about. But we want to just think through what's some additional language that we can add to this picture that helps us have a clear understanding of who we want to be and what we want to be doing as a church. One of the words that we landed on as elders and staff that we feel like is a foundational word to this picture is the word disciple. The word disciple is a big word. It's a Bible word. We can lead. I love the picture. That'd be great. Yeah, okay. Disciple is a Bible word. It shows up in the Bible. The person who seems to use it most in the Bible is Jesus. And so he talks a lot about being a disciple. The word disciple works really well for this diagram because of the nature of the word. Disciple, first and foremost, has a vertical dimension to it. To be a disciple is to be one who follows Jesus. We're going to spend kind of the first half of this sermon defining what it is to be a disciple. But then disciple also has a horizontal dimension to it. One of the last things that Jesus says after he resurrects from the dead and is about to ascend back into heaven is he tells his followers, I want you to go make disciples. Right? So I am a disciple, I connect with the Lord, but then I make disciples or I disciple others. So this word fits really well in this picture. And so the question that we want to ask over the next few weeks is, how do I form myself as a disciple? And then how do I make disciples of others? And we're going to look at the components of that in the New Testament. The backdrop that we're going to use for that is what is referred to as the Luke Acts narrative. The Luke Acts narrative. So Luke wrote two books in the New Testament. He wrote the Gospel according to Luke, and then he wrote the book of Acts, which tells us the history of the early church, right? And so those two books are kind of part one and part two of the same book. All the passages that we'll pull out of the next few weeks to kind of fill in this picture will come out of Luke and Acts. The first one that we're going to look at today, the first piece of this picture, that is the foundational piece of this picture, is the person of Jesus. If we don't get that piece into the picture, whatever else we talk about in coming weeks means nothing. This picture is grounded in the person and the work of Jesus. If there's something we want to be about, and we are about here at Grace, it is the person and the work of Jesus. It's what defines us as disciples, and it's what defines us as we make disciples. And so when we get a passage today where Jesus gets into this idea of what it looks like to follow Him. Go ahead and read it. Luke chapter 9, verses 23 to 26. And He, Jesus, said to all, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it. But whoever loses his life for my sake will save it. For what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses or forfeits himself? Whoever is ashamed of me and of my words, of him will the Son of Man be ashamed when He comes in His glory, and the glory of the Father and of the holy angels. We're going to approach this passage today in two ways. If you have a bulletin, you can look on the back of that with number 1, number 2. Here's the two grids that we kind of approach it. Number 1 is... Number 1, there we go. We're going to look at what does it mean we're going to define a disciple. Defining a disciple. That's number 1, defining a disciple. There's a couple of blanks under each of these. And then number 2, so it's number 2 on your outline, is living as a disciple. So let's define what it means to be a disciple, and let's look at what does it look like to live as a disciple. That's number 1. Number 2, the basic, simple, easy approach to our sermon today. All right, so let's look at defining a disciple. The first thing that we see in this passage that we just read in Luke chapter 9, starting in verse 23, is an invitation. Invitation. That's your first blank under defining a disciple. Is that discipleship is the way of invitation. The way of invitation. Now the invitation is a weird one. Because almost immediately, the language that we come to in this passage starts talking about a cross. And the people that Jesus was talking to in this passage, as soon as they would have heard cross, they would have probably raised their eyebrows, because the cross is an instrument of death. I mean, if you get an invitation to a birthday party or something in the mail, and it's an invitation that has death language, you're probably not going, right? So that's what Jesus' invitation is. It's wrapped up in this death language. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Now, why does Jesus do this? Well, it's because of the two verses that precede what we just read. Verses 21 and 22 in Luke chapter 9, Jesus says this. He, Jesus, strictly charged and commanded them to tell this to no one, saying, the Son of Man must suffer many things, and be rejected by the elders and the chief priests and the scribes, and be killed, and on the third day be raised. Why is Jesus' invitation for us to follow Him wrapped up in this death language? Because that was the path that He lived here on earth. His life was about culminating in His death. His death was a unique death, as Keith just shared. This is 1 Corinthians 15 is one of the earliest creed statements that we have about the importance of the gospel or the good news, the main message in Scriptures, that Jesus died for our sins. This is at the foundation of everything that we do. I mean, we have to remember that when we are born into the world, we inherit the posture of Adam and Eve. And their posture was one of rejection and rebellion against God. And when you and I are born, that's the posture we have. We're not neutral toward God. We don't like God. We do not like God. We reject God. We rebel against God. This is broken inside of us. We're created in the image of God, but it has been cracked. It's distorted. This is worthy of punishment by death. And so Jesus, God the Son, steps out of eternity, steps into human flesh, lives a perfect life, takes our punishment in his place, and dies on our behalf, so that we can come to his death, turn from our sin, and receive forgiveness through his death, and new life through his resurrection. This is the good news. This is the invitation that Jesus extends to us. It may be that there are some here this morning, you don't have any idea what I'm talking about. And you're sitting there trying to put your life together in all the ways that you can think about, and none of them are working. And it's because you don't have the missing piece of Jesus. If you think you can put together the life that you think you want in and of your own efforts, in and of your own energies, you will fail every single time. Because there will always be a missing piece that can never come from within you. It has to come from outside of you, and that piece is the person of Jesus. And if that's you, I would encourage you to talk to somebody before you leave here today to let us walk you through giving your life to Jesus. Now here's what's interesting. This verse that Keith read earlier, 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verses 1 and 2. Now I would remind you, brothers, of the gospel I preached to you, which you received, in which you stand. Pause there. Let's leave that at those. Pause there. Now, just in verse 1, we see that when we receive this gospel, when we receive this good news about Jesus, there is a transformation that takes place. There is a new way in which we stand. There is something that forever changes inside of us, so that if we were to die at any point after this, we go straight to be with Jesus, because everything that needs to be done has been done. But look at how it continues in verse 2. And by which you are being saved. So there's, in one sense, everything that needs to happen to us has happened to us when we receive Jesus, but there's also a process that starts. There's a path that we get put on. There's a new way that we begin to walk in which the death and the resurrection of Jesus is intended to be playing out in our lives, so that more and more, as we're on the path of discipleship over days, weeks, months, and years, more and more we begin to look like Jesus. And so this is letter B under number 1. Once we receive the invitation, we then get on to the way of learning. Being a disciple is not just responding to the invitation, it is giving into a new way of life, a lifestyle that is based in learning. Learning what? Learning Jesus. This is not like the kind of learning you do in school, where you cram for a test. You take the test and then dump the information. It's not that kind of learning. This is relational learning, like you would do with your spouse or your kids, where you're learning who they are and you're learning how to interact with them and you're learning about their unique personality. This kind of learning never stops. You don't ever master it so that you don't have to learn anymore. It's ongoing. And so this is what it means to be a disciple. You experience the transforming power and presence and person of Jesus, so that it then puts you into a new way of life by which you are learning Jesus in everything that comes down the pipe in your life, every circumstance, every decision, every relationship, from that moment till the day that you die. That's discipleship. We're engaging in discipleship right now. Discipleship is not just one little part of your Christian life. It's all of your Christian life. All of it. All right, so that's defining a disciple. Now let's kind of get into the nitty-gritty of the text. Living as a disciple. We already mentioned this, but we'll just go ahead and throw it out there again. The first thing that Jesus says here in living as a disciple is he introduces us to the way of death. Welcome to church. bad invitation. But it's so clear that the image that Jesus puts into the text is that of a cross. That you and I are called to take up our own cross, not in the way that Jesus did, by which he was a substitute for all sin for all time, but he invites us onto the path in which he walked. One of the things that it means to live a crucified life is to realize that it is a life of total surrender. If some Jews ever saw Romans come in and get somebody out of their village and put a cross on their back, they knew that that guy was not coming back. He was going to die. Every part of him was going to die. There's no halfway getting crucified. Now the reality is, every single one of us who have given our lives to Christ, we are on a journey. We don't get it perfect all the time. We have days where we fall short. We have days where we mess up. But the goal is, over a lifetime, is that more and more, over a lifetime, with Jesus, I'm surrendering more and more of my life so that I'm not living for myself, I'm living for Him. Jesus goes on to explain this more and more. Can we pull that verse back up, verses 23 and 24? Yeah. So he introduces the cross in 23, and then verse 24 he uses more language. Whoever would save his life will lose it. But whoever loses his life for my sake will save it. So now Jesus is describing this life of death in these terms of losing and saving. There's a great quote that captures this by a missionary who is pretty famous, Jim Elliot. Some of you may have heard of him. He was killed by the Indian tribes he was ministering to in South America. Jim Elliot said, "He is no fool who gives up what he cannot keep to gain what he cannot lose." In other words, we can go through this life living for ourselves and accumulating as much as we can and doing as much as we think is worthy. But if it's all done and living for ourselves, we will lose it all. Or we can go through this life saying, I'm not going to live for myself, I'm going to live for Christ, banking on, in the long run, that's going to pay off. Are you living for yourself today, or are you living for Christ? And it's not just big, famous missionaries who do this. And this is what you and I are called to in the home, in the workplace, at school, in the car, with our kids, in the grocery store. Are you living for yourself, or are you living for Christ? But here's what's great about that, is that, and we even see it in the language we just saw, is that this way of death, though this life will be a struggle, though there will be burdens that we carry in living for Christ in this life, in the long run it pays off. And that's what this passage leads into, this letter B here, is that the way of death, living for Christ in this life, living against the grain of this world, eventually it paves the way to the way of eternity. And this is what Jesus ends with in verses 25 and 26. It says, "For what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses or forfeits himself?" What Jesus just did in verse 25 is he summarized the entire book of Ecclesiastes. That's it right there, verse 25. That's all what Solomon in Ecclesiastes says, I have every resource I could possibly want, and I'm going to use every single bit of my resources to go get everything that I want to get. And that's what he does. He goes after everything that life has to offer. He does not spare himself in any way whatsoever. And he gets to the end of it, and he says, it was all a chasing after the wind. You can make for yourself the best life that you possibly can with your own two hands, and it can count nothing for eternity. But look here where Jesus ends. Jesus points our focus and our attention to something greater beyond this life. He says, "Whoever is ashamed of me and of my words, of him will the Son of Man be ashamed when he comes in his glory and the glory of the Father and of the holy angels. What does Jesus refix our focus onto here? He refixes our focus onto the coming glory that will appear when Jesus comes in all of his glory to return for his people. Are we living for that glory? Or are we getting so wrapped up and so focused on things in this life that we're forgetting that this life is a preparation for the next life? Anne Grace and I live in Northport by the airport. This is where the Blue Angels come. You know, you ever seen these Blue Angels when they come and they do their show? And we live real close to the airport. I mean, like the planes, the Blue Angel planes, when they're coming in close to there, I mean, they're like right over our house. It's something to behold. And so one year when they're in town, I'm out in the yard watching the Blue Angels fly around. And I look over a couple of yards from us, and there's a guy with his little weed eater. You know, like that sound of a weed eater? You know, he's got headphones on, weed eating, right? The guy is oblivious to the fact that there are blue angels up in the sky. And I'm standing in my driveway watching the Blue Angels come at me with the roar. I mean, you know, it's like it shakes your whole being and knocks you flat on your back. And this guy's over here, and he's like just walked into the Blue Weed Eater. And I'm like, dude, look up in the sky, man. Look up there. There's something up there that would blow your weed eater to shreds. Look up and see it. What a picture. Some of us are so focused on our stupid little weed eaters that we're missing the glory of Jesus Christ. And that can even look like good stuff. I'm glad my neighbor weed eats, right? I'd rather have a neat yard next to me than a messy one. It's not bad that he's weed eating. And you and I can do a whole lot of good things. But if they're done for ourselves and not for Christ, if they're done with the motivation for this life and not the next, we are missing the Blue Angels. And we're missing the glory. The glory's coming. It's coming. Are you living for it? Or are you so focused on the here and now that you're forgetting that it's up there? Who are you living for? Living for yourself? Or are you living for Christ? The key piece of the picture is the person of Jesus. It's what makes the rest of the picture work. I'll finish one more story. I was speaking somewhere on Friday. Some of you were there. I told this story, so I apologize for repeating it. On our vacation a few weeks ago, we took our kids to a pirate cruise. This guy has built this massive pirate ship. It's cool. And so you go out on there and your kids are doing all this pirate stuff. My 2-year-old little precious little girl is just full on pirate. She is, I mean, we're swapping decks and sword fighting, and it's awesome. And they at one point they take all the kids down in the bottom of the boat and they bust out this treasure map. And they tell the kids, well, hey, we've heard that there could be some pirate sunken treasure around here. And it's like their eyes are as wide as saucers. And so they go through this whole story and they say, hey, let's just start looking when we get back up on top of the ship, see if we can see the X out in the water. Of course, the boat has been, getting exactly where we need to be for the whole time we're in the bond. It's perfect. They got it planned out. And so we get back up on the top of the ship, and we're looking around for the X in the water. And one kid sees, there it is. There's the X. There's the X. And so we grab a rope, and they throw the rope out over the edge, and we catch the treasure. And all the kids are on the rope. I'm on the rope, and we're all pulling to get the treasure. And then here comes treasure up out of the water. Awesome. And we're leaving from there, and I asked Jim, 4-year-old, "Hey buddy, what was your favorite part?" Treasure. Jesus told a story about a man in a field who discovered treasure hidden in the field. And when he discovered the treasure hidden in a field, he buried it. And the text in Matthew 13 says, with joy, he went and sold everything that he had so that he could buy the field where the treasure was. Is Jesus your treasure? Is Jesus the most valuable thing in your life? I'm not asking you if you're saved. I'm asking you, is Jesus your treasure? Would you, with joy, sell all that you have so you can have Him? That's what we want to be about. That's the foundation of the picture. The person of Jesus as our treasure. Not just that we believe right things about Him, not just that we know Bible stories, but that we treasure Him and we savor Him more than anything else. That is the question. What's your treasure? What's your treasure? What's our treasure as a church? I mean, how great would it be if other people in town, when they bring up Grace Church, you say, hey, those people over there are pretty messed up, but they love Jesus. I'll take it. I'll take that. Man, I want Jesus to be our treasure. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to have an extended time of response this morning. We're going to sing a couple of songs. For whoever's up for praying today, we go ahead and get on the walls. We have people on the walls every Sunday who just are there to pray with you. We would like for you to use them. We would like to think that maybe in response to singing and communion and sermons that maybe that gets God stirring something up in your heart that maybe you want to pray with someone. You don't have to go pray with them, but we invite you to if you want to. We're just going to take a few minutes for each person in here to consider, is Jesus my treasure today? Let's pray. Jesus, I want you to be my treasure. I know there are moments when I do and say things that would indicate that you are not. Lord, our intention here is not to condemnation on anybody, but it's simply to take an honest look at ourselves and ask the question: Is Jesus our treasure? Lord Jesus, renew our understanding of who you are. Holy Spirit, please move in our hearts. It's in the name of Jesus that we pray.